Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. One of my all-time favorite Bible stories involves Elisha and how Naaman was cured of leprosy. As a brief reminder, Naaman was a general in the Syrian army who got leprosy. Eventually tracking down Elisha, he was told to dip himself in the Jordan River 7 times. When he did, he was cleansed of the leprosy, and he went back to thank Elisha. Then as he took his leave from Elisha, he asked for a cartload of dirt. You see, in those days they believed a god had power only over his or her own lands. So Naaman planned to take dirt from Israel back with him to Syria, so that he could spread the dirt out in the courtyard of his house and worship God there. I'm reminding us of that story today because as we wrap up this week of looking at false gods who are mentioned by name in the Bible story, today we want to look at Molech. And he was the god the people of Naaman's homeland would have worshipped. Molech is an ancient Canaanite god, and while he is mentioned in the Old Testament 9 different times, in almost all of them he is spoken of as utterly detestable, almost with a shudder. Molech is talked about several times in Leviticus and in highly negative ways. It appears that worship of Molech involved child sacrifice. And in Leviticus and in other places, we are told not to do that and to have nothing at all to do with Molech. An important story in the Bible might have more to do with Molech than we have realized before. You know the story where Abraham is called on to sacrifice Isaac on the mountain. As they go up the mountain, Abraham carries the fire, while Isaac carries the wood for the burnt offering, not knowing it is intended to be him. Isaac said, "Father, I see the fire, and here is the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham said, "God himself will provide the lamb, my son." Well, you know what happened and how God stopped Abraham, and an animal was found there to take Isaac's place. One of the key points is that what God does not require of us, he offers of himself in Jesus, who was sacrificed for our sins. A much smaller point that is made in this story is that child sacrifice is not our way. It is not the way of faith in this God, as it was for other gods like Molech. Why would someone sacrifice their child? Child sacrifice was practiced in order to show your God that your God was more important than anything else to you. After all, that's kind of what the word sacrifice means. We give up something valuable. What is more valuable than your child? Another time that Molech is mentioned also deserves attention. On Wednesday, we talked a bit about how in his old age, Solomon turned away after other gods. I mentioned specifically that his wives turned his heart away, and Solomon began to follow the goddess Astarte. The Bible doesn't look kindly on Solomon for this, but that's not the end of his faithlessness. Just a verse or two later in 1 Kings it says, "Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and for Molech, the abomination of the Ammonites, on the mountain east of Jerusalem. He did the same for all his foreign wives, who offered incense and sacrificed to their gods." To be clear, what this means is that just southeast of Jerusalem, Solomon built a temple to Molech along with others. And again, Molech is called an abomination. Both Isaiah and Jeremiah mention Molech in their preaching, both of them using Molech as an example of how people have forsaken God and gone off after other gods. Naaman asked for dirt to take home so that he could worship God. But the truth is that our God has power and rules not just in Israel or over Israeli dirt, but everywhere. May God rule forever in our hearts. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.